You have been told repeatedly that Western civilization is a tidy inheritance, a straight line from Greece to Rome, and then, miraculously, across the forests of Germany and the islands of Britain. Is this true? No. It is a fabrication. The idea of the West as a separate, self-contained entity is a historical illusion. Civilization did not spring from Greece alone. It evolved in tandem with the Middle East. Mesopotamia, Egypt, Persia, they were not merely predecessors. They were contemporaries, partners, rivals, and incubators of ideas that would shape the so-called West. And the Middle Ages? You were told they were dark. Absolute darkness. But pause a moment. In the 7th century CE, while Europeans were tossing waste into the streets and surviving without plumbing, the cities of the Middle East had paved roads, indoor plumbing, and streets lit with oil lamps. This is not embellishment. This is historical fact. The East is not opposite the cradle of the West. It is the very crucible from which it emerged. To understand the man who will dominate our story, Khalid ibn Al-Walid, born circa 592 CE, we must first understand a choice made 7 centuries earlier. Why does history repeat itself? Because men like Marcus Licinius Crassus cannot resist plunder. In 53 BCE, Crassus, a member of the First Triumvirate alongside Pompey Magnus and Gaius Julius Caesar, invaded the Persian Empire with 40,000 Romans, eager for glory, wealth, and a place in history. The Romans met 8,000 Persian horse archers at Carrhae. They deployed their famous testudo formation, shields interlocked like armor, but the Persians waited. When the Romans broke formation to charge, the Persians fired backward in the deadly Parthian shot. Then, as if to mock Roman planning, 1,000 cataphracts, fully armored horsemen on armored horses, descended. Technology and tactics had leapt 400 years beyond Rome. Crassus had a plan. Wait for the enemy to run out of arrows. Sound strategy? Hardly. The Persians had 1,000 camels carrying 1,000,000 arrows. The result, 20,000 Romans dead, and Crassus himself executed with molten gold poured down his throat, a literal symbol of his greed. This was not merely a military disaster, it was a warning. 7 centuries of intermittent warfare between Rome and Persia followed, a pattern of exhaustion and vulnerability. By the 6th century CE, both empires were hollowed out, not only by swords, but by rice and mosquitoes. Indonesian fishermen had brought rice cultivation to Madagascar and eventually to the Middle East. This seemingly minor agricultural transfer created swamps and breeding grounds for malaria, plunging life expectancy from 45 to 20. Then came the plague of Justinian, mid-6th century, killing up to 60% of populations in some regions. Pause. It is into this vacuum of power, disease, and depopulation that Khalid ibn Al-Walid was born. A man of deserts and prophecy, but also a product of centuries of empire exhausted, innovation abandoned, and diseases unleashed. To understand him, to understand the revolution he would lead, we must understand that he inherited the consequences of Crassus's greed, the failures of Rome and Persia, and the reshaping of human life itself. Did Rome fall in 476 CE? You have been taught it did. Textbooks repeat it like a mantra. But this is a myth. Rome did not die. It merely shifted its center. Constantinople became the capital, preserving imperial authority until 1453 CE. The empire endured, fractured but functioning. And yet, by the early 7th century, the Roman state was brittle. In 602 CE, a general named Phocas murdered Emperor Maurus, sparking a 26-year war with the Persian Emperor Khosrau II. By 628 CE, after decades of attrition, both empires were exhausted, hollowed out by war, plague, and famine. And yet, in the deserts of Arabia, a new system was emerging. In 610 CE, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, began receiving prophecies in Mecca. By 622 CE, he had fled to Yathrib, later Medina, establishing a state that was political, legal, and religious all at once. Khalid ibn al-Walid entered this story initially as an enemy, fighting for the Meccans at the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE and the Battle of the Trench in 627 CE. He opposed Muhammad's vision. Yet by 629 CE, Khalid converted to Islam, joining a movement that was reshaping the Arabian Peninsula from tribal allegiance into a unified polity. Khalid's first command came at the Battle of Mu'tah. 3,000 Muslim Arabs faced perhaps 10,000 Romans. When the Muslim commanders fell, Khalid assumed the banner. How does one save an army from annihilation? By turning fear into illusion. Khalid marched his men in circles over a hill to mimic reinforcements. He lit thousands of fires at night. The Romans, convinced they faced a massive host, allowed the Muslims to retreat. A tactical withdrawal became a triumph of psychological warfare. Then, in 632 CE, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, died. Abu Bakr, his successor, faced the Ridda Wars, a series of rebellions by self-proclaimed prophets determined to dismantle the new state. Khalid acted decisively. In less than a year, he unified the Arabian Peninsula, a feat unparalleled in human history. Tribal allegiances, centuries of rivalry, fractured states, all reconciled under a single banner. Khalid then turned north into Iraq. At the Battle of the Chains, the Persian general Hormuz had chained his men together to prevent retreat. Khalid challenged him to a duel and killed him in 30 seconds. With light cavalry, he dismantled the immobile, chained Persians, demonstrating an understanding of mobility, timing, and morale, centuries ahead of European warfare. But his greatest demonstration came during the Iraqi campaign of 633 CE. 3 Persian armies, each numbering 20,000 men, were converging to crush Khalid's 15,000 soldiers. How do you defeat superior numbers without modern navigation or communication? Khalid split his force into 3 units, moving under cover of darkness, navigating by terrain alone. At precisely 2 a.m., each unit struck the first Persian camp simultaneously, annihilating 20,000 men. The maneuver repeated 2 more times. 60,000 Persian soldiers destroyed in succession, without error, without modern tools, a feat of synchronization that even contemporary militaries would envy. Khalid ibn al-Walid's genius was not merely in courage or brutality. It was in strategy, organization, and the ability to exploit both the weaknesses of empires and the psychology of men. From tribal deserts to the heart of Persian fortresses, he became the architect of a new order. And yet, his story is also the story of a world in transition, where old empires weakened by disease, war, and mismanagement left a vacuum into which a single man, born of the desert, could step and reshape history. By the time Khalid ibn al-Walid reached Firaz on the Euphrates, the impossible had happened. The ancient enemies, Rome and Persia, locked in conflict for 680 years, had allied against him. Together, they fielded 150,000 men. Khalid's army numbered a mere 15,000, a 20-to-1 disadvantage. And yet, as history would show, numbers alone do not decide battles. Strategy, timing, and audacity do. Khalid lured 50,000 of the enemy across the river, then employed his cavalry to compress them into an immobile mass. They could not swing their weapons. 50,000 perished. Khalid's losses, 200 men. The decisive engagement, however, awaited at Yarmouk in 636 CE. Emperor Heraclius had dispatched 4 armies to reclaim Syria. Khalid, though officially demoted by Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, who feared his rising political influence, was placed in unofficial command. Facing 120,000 Roman soldiers with only 40,000 men, he fought a battle that would become legend. If you like our content so far, please like and subscribe for more. For 6 days, the battle raged. On several occasions, the Muslim lines broke, yet they were driven back by wives of the soldiers, who used tent posts to shame them into returning to the fray. The climax came when Khalid employed his light cavalry against the Roman heavy cavalry before they could form. The Roman infantry was forced into a ravine. General Vahan fell in a final duel. Heraclius watched, powerless, as his empire's grip on Syria dissolved. He abandoned the region forever. And then came Jerusalem, a city steeped in religious and imperial symbolism. The Archbishop Sophronius refused to surrender to anyone but the Caliph himself. Umar ibn al-Khattab arrived, not as a conqueror bedecked in gold, but in mended rags, riding a camel upon which his servant sat. The contrast was stark. Sophronius, expecting brutality and plunder, the standard Roman practice, was horrified. Instead, Umar offered terms. No property would be seized, no churches burned. Humility, not gold. Justice, not vengeance. Umar refused to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, fearing future Muslims might claim it as a mosque. Instead, he turned to the Temple Mount, long a Roman garbage dump intended to humiliate the Jews. Umar fell to his knees, clearing the refuse with his own hands. 80 Jewish families, previously expelled by the Romans, were invited back to the city. Governance, piety, and social reconstruction, all executed through deliberate moral statecraft. Khalid ibn Al-Walid, the undefeated warrior, was finally retired by his cousin Umar. He died in Mecca in 642 CE, aged 50. He did not die in battle, as a soldier might hope. He died in bed, scarred across his entire body, lamenting that there was not a spot on him without a wound, yet that he was dying like a cow, denied the honor of a soldier's death. And so ended the career of a man who dismantled the antiquity of the world to make way for its future. From the deserts of Arabia to the rivers of Syria and Iraq, Khalid reshaped empires, not merely by sword, but by strategy, by exploiting the vulnerabilities of exhausted states, and by integrating religious law and morality into governance. His life demonstrates that history is not shaped solely by kings, emperors, or numbers. It is shaped by those who can act decisively in the vacuum left by failure.